I have been reflecting on the last 5 years of my life. I took a break from social media during the lockdowns, and no one checked to see if I was okay or alive. I consistently reached out to people for birthdays and holidays. However, when I stopped reaching out, no one contacted me. No one ever wished me a happy birthday. I always put in the effort with my friends, but it seems that no one cares. Society does not care. Have you ever had a moment in life when you realized this? Story 1. When we had a group outing, hardly anyone spoke to me. At the end, when it came time to commemorate the occasion with a group photo, they told me to take it and send it to the group chat, which I wasn't a part of. Story 2. I was pretty neglected by my parents while growing up, so I probably concluded that nobody but me is going to look out for me by the time I was 10 or 11. On one hand, it's great that people can't hurt me because I don't let them get close enough. On the other hand, it's a shame that I can't trust people enough to let them get close to me. Story 3. When I was in elementary school, I would sit down at a school lunch table, and everyone would get up and run away to another table. No one wanted to be around the blind child. I have felt isolated like that my entire life. Story 4. My mom is the only person in my life who genuinely loves and cares for me. However, in middle school, I learned that when I was bullied, everyone in my class would laugh at me, even when I cried and was clearly depressed. My dad told me to toughen up because men don't cry. Story 5. When I was 11 years old, my cousin made fun of my brother for having a learning disability. I pointed out that my brother had better grades than he did, so maybe he would find himself on the same bus. He threw 2 punches. I hit him back on the second one. I expected my parents to understand that I was defending myself and protecting my younger brother, who studied hard. I was instructed to apologize, but I refused. I took a severe beating, and my father asked twice if I had changed my mind. I was defiant and responded disrespectfully. My mother watched and never intervened, only asking me to apologize. I later ended up arrested for missing too much school. Nobody spoke up. Pictures of me with bruises disappeared because my father was a police officer, and they did him a favor. I ended up in the system. I learned then that only a fool believes that the truth alone matters or that one can trust the police or the system. Story 6. One year, I wanted to throw a memorable party for my birthday. I decorated the entire house, got special lights, and created a playlist. I filled an entire wall with balloons for photos. I bought snacks and prepared food. I bought a variety of drinks to share with everyone, as well as some cannabis. I wanted to provide everything, so I asked no one to bring anything. Unfortunately, no one came. Many canceled last minute, and some completely ignored me. I spent the day in tears. Story 7. My dog died, and absolutely nobody reached out for comfort or offered to spend time with me. I had zero support. It was just me and an enormous hole in the middle of my heart. That's when I truly realized I was without friends or allies in this world. I felt completely alone, not even having a dog for company. Story 8. Going through family court has been the most difficult experience of my life. I have been stabbed and left for dead, and I was treated more fairly during that ordeal than I was in family court. At least when I was bleeding out on the ground, I had a chance. Story 9. I don't think I have a particular moment like those you all are sharing. I have learned this, but not through one big moment of realization. Rather, through small moments over time that very few people care. However, I have had a moment of realization that was somewhat similar. I met my now wife during high school. A couple of years after high school, she got a big bucket, a long unrelated story, and we decided to go on a vacation for the first time in our lives. We went to a real-life paradise called Búzios in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We had the time of our lives. Some of the prettiest beaches in the world and the best food I have ever had, along with a fantastic hotel. During this vacation, I had 2 realizations and learned 2 huge life lessons. First, we participated in a lot of very expensive activities, but the most memorable and fun was the cheapest of all, the day before we left. We were at this beach and rented snorkels, masks, swim fins, and pool noodles for about $10 for half an hour. We slowly swam deeper and deeper, saw a beautiful coral reef, and then a huge school of fish passed right below us. If I had just extended my arm, I could have touched them. I was at the same time both terrified and mesmerized. Felt like 2 whole minutes of constant fishing. We didn't say a word. I don't think I blinked or even breathed. I have this exact memory in my mind like a picture. I can close my eyes and see it. We know that some of the best things in life aren't expensive, but actually experiencing them is a powerful lesson. The second realization came on the last day of our trip. I was at the hotel, on the balcony of the expensive room we rented, looking at the beautiful beach and all these people, thinking normal thoughts like, I'll miss this place, and I wish I didn't have to go back. Then it hit me. I would go, and this place and all these people would continue as if nothing had happened. I was irrelevant. I find it even hard to express what the lesson was. It was both. First, realizing that life is unfair. We studied a lot and saved money for years to have this experience for 5 days, while for some people, that experience was just their regular life. I would have to work for years to ever go back there, while some of these people lived a lifelong vacation, could go to the beach whenever they felt like it, and eat at those places every day. My life isn't anything like that. I would go back to taking four buses every day. Mainly, the second lesson was that I am tiny. There are thousands of places I will never go and billions of people I will never meet. I am irrelevant to their lives. We often think of life as if we are the main character and see everything from our own perspective. It was a hit to my ego. It wasn't just that people didn't care. It was that life itself doesn't care. Those waves, the fish, they don't care. They would still be there and mesmerize other people even if I never went back. I'm not on a hero's journey. I'm just a regular guy. Story 10. Literally no one cares about me except my mom and brother. My dad did, but he passed away. My mom is suffering from cancer, and my brother is too focused on her to really concern himself with me. I barely know my sister. The only people who message me are scammers on Facebook and Reddit. I have just learned to accept it. I have to take care of myself because no one else can. Story 11. While on a summer trip to Croatia, my friends went swimming while I returned the rental car. No one sent me the location to come back, and they never answered their phones or called me later. I ended up on the other side of the city, walking the beach alone. Story 12. I have been there. I had a large social group, a church group, and a work group. I had numerous friends, and like you, I always asked how they were, made cakes for their birthdays, and spoke to everyone. I was the person everyone talked to because I was caring, gentle, and honest, but I didn't disclose their personal matters. Then, in October 2023, everything changed. I got injured at work and became disabled. I couldn't go dancing, attend parties, go to church, work. Nothing. I was unable to walk more than a few yards and couldn't drive. I fell off the radar unwillingly. Months passed, and no one called. I lost my job, my hobbies, my money, my friends, my mobility, my freedom, and my health. I realized that very few people truly care when it matters. It has been 11 months since my accident, and I am still disabled. Do you know how many people have inquired about me after hearing what happened through word of mouth? Around 7 people out of at least 100 who knew me. It's incredibly sad. I removed 90% of them from my social media because I realized how little they truly cared. People can be selfish creatures in a competitive world. Story 13. I was working in remote Australia during the Christmas period at a hospital. My girlfriend just informed me that she had a boyfriend. I had sent gifts to all my family and friends. My elderly grandmother was the only one who sent me a gift. When I called my family, they said, "We were just talking about the lovely gift you sent, but we suddenly realized that none of us bought you anything." Story 14. I discovered it early. When I was 18, I worked a seasonal job for 6 months on and 6 months off. During my off-season, I was basically alone in a new city with no friends, and I made the mistake of living off campus. No one would check on me unless I made the effort to make friends. I have always had a knack for getting groups to form around me, but it was eye-opening to realize that if I didn't maintain those relationships myself, they would all wither away. This used to make me sad, but eventually, I found it empowering. The fate of my social life was entirely in my hands. Story 15. All the times I tried to be a part of a fandom, People seemed to want to stick to their friend groups. It didn't matter how much I tried to participate. People say that you should reach out, yet I have seen individuals become disinterested in casual comments. It feels like they don't want to engage with anyone new outside of a very specific context. Story 16, Homeless. I couldn't reach out to my extended family because I don't have Facebook. My immediate family is deceased, so we were somewhat estranged. However, I had seen them semi-annually at gatherings. I haven't spoken to any of them in 9 years. Story 17. Since I was a kid, my dad left when I was a child. My mom worked evenings and didn't come home until 2 a.m. I had to take care of my little brother. I grew up feeling like no one cared about me. I still feel this way as an adult. My brother and daughter are the only people in my life who have shown they care from the beginning. Story 18. It made me feel better when I read that the only apostle at the cross with Jesus was John. He started out with 12 and ended up with 1. Story 19. My divorce was at the beginning of last year. Technically, I had a lot of people who cared about what I went through. However, there were also many who I thought cared about me but ended up rubbing salt in my wounds and showing zero empathy. This included my siblings and my own mother, with whom I have always had limited contact. Naturally, the first point of contact when you're going through difficulties is family. For me, none of them showed up. Instead, they took it upon themselves to unload their frustrations about my limited contact. Why that is a story for another day. Let's just say I was told one thing while they acted differently and benefited from the situation, leaving me with nothing. In summary, this was my nobody cares about me moment. My divorce revealed who my true friends and family are, and highlighted those who have been against me. Story 20. When you stop giving in to drama and stop providing others a reason to gossip, you quickly realize how many friends were actually just part of social bullying and adding insult to injury. Beating a dead horse is unkind and not an admirable thing to do. When you stop going out of your way for others, some people may not like it when you set boundaries. However, not everyone is like that. The good ones will appreciate it. It is often amusing to see those who enjoy making others look bad, yet fail to recognize that they are awful and cruel themselves and the source of the drama. Story 21. I think it is a bit extreme to jump straight to the conclusion that no one cares. Many people are just trying to survive. Sometimes we may not even speak to the people who care most about us for months or even years. Story 22. I experience it every day. I message people, sometimes discussing self-harm, but they ignore me. They reach out and ask for money, then disappear again. They say they are too busy, yet they seem to have time to hang out with others. Story 23. I went through this over the last couple of years. Distance made it hard, as well as friends getting married and having children. I realized that it's not that they don't care about me. It's that they are too focused on themselves and their lives, and the world is becoming overwhelming. I came to this realization when a friend passed away, and I regretted not reaching out when I could have. I also noticed that those who do reach out to me often want something and only contact me when it's convenient for them. So, I had to make a decision. Do I want real friends or those who are only around when it's convenient? In the end, there are 2 people I really know I can count on. Honestly, I'm okay with that because I love myself and am comfortable in my solitude. Story 24. For me, it has always been this quote, out of sight, out of mind. This has been true for the last few years. I stopped contacting people on Facebook and thinned out my friend list. Some people didn't talk to me in real life for over 4 years, and I deleted about 15 people. Now, I'm basically just doing my own thing. If I see someone around town, I'll say hi, but I'm over social media at this point. The only reason I got Facebook was to talk to some family since I stopped going to New York, which is just not a thing I want to do anymore. Story 25. Once I stopped driving 35 minutes down the road to hang out with friends, I realized that after multiple years, every time I asked them to come to visit, there was always some type of excuse. Now I spend time with my wife and socialize with my coworkers. I have a good relationship with my parents, but I feel like I still need to make the effort to plan visits. I'm okay with that because I don't want to feel pressure to be overly involved. Story 26. When this girl ended our relationship after her contract concluded at our mutual place of employment, she no longer needed my assistance with her job responsibilities. I guess it's all my fault for not detecting her intentions sooner. Story 27. I recently retired from a 25-year career in healthcare information technology, and nobody said goodbye to me or reached out with congratulations. There was no response to my departure. Story 28. When I had a meltdown and went to a mental hospital, I returned a whole month later to find my phone filled with political messages. None of my friends texted me, and even when I reached out, I was left unread or blocked. Edit. I just realized this is for men. I apologize, as I am not one. Story 29. It's hard to position yourself as important in anyone's life. Everyone is living in their own bubble regardless of its size. If you don't fit into that bubble, you might be overlooked. You can't be upset about it. It's just the way of life. I am one of those friends who doesn't reach out. I don't prioritize friendship highly, but that doesn't mean I don't want to be friends. It's easy to take it personally, but we are all in our own worlds. I have also felt abandoned and left out by friends as a child. My entire circle turned on me over a girl, and for 3 years, I had no one to talk to in school. So I do understand what it's like. Story 30. When I was little, I could do whatever I wanted until any time of day, and no one would notice or mention it. I would run around town by myself, even at 5 years old, going to church alone down the street and attending Bible studies at different churches. As I got older, my activities changed to drinking, drugs, and partying all night. It's a hard lesson to learn, but when you learn it at a young age, you realize your own strength in being alone. Now, as an adult, I am very content with solitude and not speaking to anyone. Story 31. I moved to a new town for 3 years, and none of my friends visited. Then I moved to a new city for 4 years, during which my family visited 3 times. My dad twice and my mom once. My friends visited twice, but both times they were there for work, and I was available to hang out for just 1 night. In those 7 years, I visited home multiple times to see friends and family. Story 32. Since I was 17, I realized that society in general does not care about me. Fortunately, my friends do, and they show it every time it matters. Story 33. When I had my second child and went off social media, Snapchat was my main way to communicate with everyone. Now that I don't have it, nobody reaches out to me. Not one friend has come to visit me. Story 34. When I lost my finger and rushed to the hospital, the nurse told me to sit down for a few minutes. I always knew that I am on my own. Story 35. In high school, I played League of Legends with a group of people, but they often discussed their hangouts and I was never included. Eventually, I decided to see what would happen if I stopped initiating conversations. For months, nobody approached me at school. It was upsetting, but also somewhat peaceful. I did not retain any friends from high school. Story 36. I sat at dinner with my wife and told her that she has been acting like she doesn't care for me anymore. She sat there stone-faced, with nothing to say. I lost my mind. The following week, she ended our relationship with about 25 words, offering no explanation. She hasn't talked to me since, except for discussing logistics about the children. Story 37. I think it was my 12th or 13th birthday when I lost the energy of childhood, which I refer to as a guy's expiration date. After that point, even my own parents seemed less concerned about me on most days. Story 38. Well, my family started taking me a bit more seriously whenever I left to fight in a war. It was surprising how everyone went from ignoring me to asking why I didn't call more often. To be honest, it felt like a somewhat backhanded attempt, but hey, I appreciate the effort. Story 39. When we still hadn't gotten back on our feet after depleting our finances during the move, my grandmother decided to pressure me about money while simultaneously supporting the lifestyle of her irresponsible daughter. Story 40. A couple of years ago, I felt really low mentally one night and texted the people I thought were my best friends for support. They all told me they were either occupied or about to sleep and that they didn't have time. The next thing I knew, I fell asleep crying, only to wake up and open Instagram at 2 or 3 a.m. to see that they had all been online just a few minutes ago. They told me they couldn't help me and then proceeded to text each other until 2 or 3 a.m. Story 41. That has been my experience in recent years as well. There have been several other instances before, but in recent years I really put it to the test. Last year, I stopped sending messages for birthdays and holidays and did not hear from anyone at all on my birthday or Christmas. Out of sight, out of mind is how I seem to others. Story 42. Recently, I had an accident and broke my front teeth. I thought everyone would notice and ask about it. I felt hesitant to go to college for a few days, but I had to go anyway. Only a few of my friends noticed, and I was in shock when I got back home. At first, I was surprised that no one seemed to care, but later I realized that my close friends did notice it, and that was okay. Not everyone pays attention to the minute details about you, but your close friends will. Story 43. When I told my wife that I had considered taking my life and she did not react, I confronted her about it one day. She said I was the one who caused the fight that led to having that thought. I said that was my cry for help. I need help. She told me that was my problem and I should deal with it myself. Never again. Story 44. The fact that I was in a server with a few people and would talk to them for multiple hours a day, then suddenly disappeared and no one reached out to check on me. Also, I reach out almost all the time. Story 45. My ex abused me, trapped me into moving in with her, and isolated me from my friends. All my family cared about was that I had a child. Even when I became ill from the stress of supporting my abusive ex, no one came to help. In the end, she left to be with someone else I had no idea about, and my family just told me to get back together with her, being very dismissive of my feelings. I miss my daughter. Story 46. When I realized that people under the multiple friendship subreddits only want to talk about deep and meaningful topics rather than actually getting to know someone. Story 47. My best friend died on July 3rd of last year. For months, I have been planning a very small, intimate get-together to celebrate his life on the 1-year anniversary. My friends know that his death hit me extremely hard and often offer me platitudes like, "I'm always here for you," or "We want you to come out." I was double-checking the date and everyone's availability months in advance. I worried I was being annoying, yet not once did anyone say they couldn't make it or express any doubt. Of course, on the day of the gathering, every single person canceled. It was honestly the last straw with this town I live in. I'm leaving the state because of this. Story 48. Years ago, when I was in high school, I had a lot of friends. However, as I reflected on it, I realized they didn't really care for me. My best friend made me feel lonely due to our incompatibility. My dad also made me feel inhuman. I wasn't really talked to or helped, and I often felt ignored. Once I finally understood this, I was upset for a good while. Never have I had so many people around but felt so lonely. Story 49. I went through a life-changing accident around 5 years ago. I barely heard from anyone at the time and haven't heard from many since. It makes you realize. Story 50. It is fundamentally the same as you mentioned, but each year is different. No one except my close family remembers my birthday or wishes me well on special occasions. All my friends remember each other's birthdays, but I am the only one who feels overlooked. If I don't remind them the day before, they tend to forget. The only person who remembers my birthday is a friend I have had since childhood. He remembers it because it coincides with the anniversary of a prominent figure's passing in my country. Story 51. I've been told to be nice and kind. Many people don't work that way. It's kind of funny to be nice and kind, get the reputation of being a good person, and then mistreat someone who thinks they can take advantage of me and that I'm desperate for friends. People trying to borrow money when they've never said a word to me otherwise is the most obvious example. Work friends can be the trickiest because you can't just walk away. Toxic bosses are the worst, but if you stand up to them as a group, things can change. Story 52. When I suffered from writer's syndrome at 19 and could not walk for 2 years, I gained full control of my condition by 21. This experience gave me unlimited motivation, and now I am surpassing those who have wronged me, both literally and figuratively. Story 53. When I was in school, I used to eat lunch alone, watching my so-called friends laughing and joking together while no one sat beside me. On the last day of school, I was left alone, and no one bothered to ask me when I changed schools for senior high. Things didn't change when I entered university. From celebrating my birthday alone, which hurt deeply the first time, to attending classes by myself, to spending all day in my hostel room with no one checking in on me, I felt alone. I was the only one in my hostel wing not invited to parties or social gatherings. Though it seemed I had a lot of people to talk to and many so-called friends, I realized that no one truly cared. They were only around for selfish reasons. My loneliness began when I entered high school. Before that, I was a pretty extroverted and popular student. To be honest, life feels dull now, and it hurts, though I have become accustomed to it. Story 54. Every year on my birthday, I realize that people often do not care about me, not because they forget my birthday, but because I invest all my effort in their celebrations while they do not reciprocate. When I am sad and experiencing a breakdown, no one is there for me as I am for them. Therefore, my mantra is to focus on myself because, in the end, that is all I have. Story 55. I feel like I've had an inkling since elementary school, but late high school was when it really hit. I would send friends birthday messages, try to be there for them, and organize events. I never received a happy birthday message from anyone not related to me after sophomore year, even when our birthdays were only a week or two apart or when we were talking on the day. I started losing contacts, and if I disappeared, no one ever seemed to check in on me. Not when I was sick, not when I stopped trying to organize things, and not when I started sitting alone at lunch, even in full view of others. I thought I found some people who cared in college. I could count maybe 2 or 3 of them as friends because I occasionally received acknowledgments from them. Story 56. I'm very lucky to have always been cared for, but I know many people who used to be outsiders, not invited to gatherings or seen as the weird kids. People would constantly take from them but never give back. Along with some of my older friends, we have fostered a friend group where everyone who is chill is welcome. We take group photos or selfies when possible. If someone is taking the photo, they are swapped out by another person. We listen to everyone when they need to be heard, check in on each other, offer hugs, and strive to never leave anyone out. Over the years, we've adopted many people into our circle. Someone might be an old friend, a new partner, a colleague they've hit it off with, or someone they've met at parties. Soon enough, they become best friends with almost everyone. The pattern is that they often feel a little outside the norm and have been sidelined for much of their lives. It often surprises them to realize they are genuinely cared for. Just recently, I had to convince an old colleague of mine that he is not in the group merely because of his boyfriend, who moved here a few years ago and mostly knows people through him. He is included because he is a great person and is always welcome, even if his boyfriend cannot make it. Just as we have given many of these guys and gals confidence and refuge, they have done the same for me and others. I recently came out as transgender, and even though my family is uncertain and awkward about it, I have met nothing but love and acceptance from the group. This support is making the period while I wait to move out much more tolerable. All this is to say, it is possible to find people who care, you just need to look. I believe in chosen family, even though I still love my relatives, who are going through a tough adjustment period. Many of my friends never believed that love, let alone platonic love, was possible, but it is out there, waiting to be found. Story 57. I had a breakup with my ex 5 months ago, as things became toxic. None of our mutual friends have reached out to me since. Story 58. When I was listening to the new Childish Gambino song and he screamed, "Nobody cares," at me. In reality, I honestly don't think I've ever truly experienced this, and it's incredibly awful that so many men do. Story 59. I have completely disappeared from my usual hangouts and all social media for months, and nobody noticed. My band has had a month off during this slow season, and I have not heard from any of them. They all hang out without me. My birthday is in a week, and aside from my sister, I don't expect anyone to remember it. Story 60. Sorry you're going through this. Unfortunately, that's life. I have been in similar situations, and I realize we have very few true friends. Once I recognized this, I stopped blaming myself and found happiness in my own company. Story 61. When I was in a serious car accident, I broke my collarbone. While everyone else was having fun, I felt forgotten. Story 62. I got injured. After a few days, no one really checked in on me, except for the obligatory, "How are you doing?" As time went on, I became more depressed and slept a lot due to pain medication. I realized they don't care, including family. I stopped trying to tiptoe around everyone and just started speaking the truth. That didn't go down well. I now have very few people I talk to. It's sad to realize that if I die tomorrow, it will be a handful of people who will truly care, aside from my wife and kids. That hurts, but I think deep down I actually knew it, never allowing myself to accept it. Oh well. Story 63. When I was in a highly abusive relationship years ago, which included domestic violence, nobody believed me. Even my own parents think to this day that I somehow caused the violence. The police removed me from my own apartment in the middle of the night because they couldn't put a woman on the streets at that time, ignoring my physical injuries. I guess she has been killing me, and even then, it has to be somehow my fault. She was great at lying and manipulating as well. Story 64. During my sophomore year, I spent the entire first semester sitting alone, not speaking to anyone unless necessary. Even close friends barely engaged with me, so I never attempted to initiate conversations. Eventually, I grew tired of the solitude and began talking to some people. Every lunchtime, I would join a large group, and it felt great. I followed all of them online, and they often shared pictures of their outings, from which I was always excluded. Almost everyone I interacted with was hanging out together, yet none of them thought to invite me. I eventually stopped talking to them again, and they didn't seem to notice. Someone from that group, whom I had considered a close friend for years, told me directly that I was secondary to everyone else. Fortunately, another person in that group felt similarly and also distanced themselves for the same reasons, and now we talk almost daily. Story 65. The only person who cares about me is my dog. I still care about people, just less. I am tired of having one-sided contact. You know where I am, surrounded by insincerity. Story 66. It was when people knew I was struggling with women, and no one offered help or potential partners. In fact, they didn't even want to hear me talk about it. I essentially stayed single and was supposed to just figure it out. Meanwhile, everyone else was getting married and participating in couple events. Friendships faded because I couldn't cope. That was when I realized that no one cared whether I figured it out or not. That's when I became overly focused on my own needs and goals. Story 67. Our CEO assigned his daughter, a lawyer, as the new chief operating officer in our area. Being one of the key personnel in the group, I was excited to meet her, like the rest of the team. However, when we were called up, the boss only introduced his latest associates, and some of us were left feeling foolish. We knew then that the boss did this intentionally. It's important to note that his core group had recently been promoted, as they are known for their loyalty to him. That's when I realized I had wasted 10 years of my career building up the team for nothing. Apparently, all reports are filtered by the boss before they go to the chief operating officer, unlike before when we could openly discuss matters. Now, only certain approved topics are being brought up. Story 68. Nobody owes you anything. If you are going to go off the grid and sulk, do not expect people to go out of their way for you. Why should someone care about you? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.